More the Floor, a special live edition, or if you're watching later, a video edition of the Pistons podcast playoff edition. And with Evan Jenkins, I'm Stoney. And man, for 3 quarters, things were looking really good. And, you know, all the good things you could say about guys like Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr., and they all went away. 21-0 run by the Knicks. Pistons led 98-90, and then the game just completely fell apart. And when they start out in the fourth quarter with a 5-second violation and then a 24-second violation, and it just absolutely like an avalanche. They couldn't stop it, made bad turnovers after bad turnovers, and they couldn't stop them. And that's the story of the game.
And it almost seemed like no lead was big enough for the Pistons, right? Even when they went up 9 and started that quarter with an 8-point lead. And boy, is that missed dunk by Asor Thompson a memento of what was about to come in that fourth quarter.
They missed 2 dunks. Hardaway's 2.
Yeah, that's a tough one because that should have been a foul, obviously, on the arm. And boy, if you learn something new in basketball every single day that the ball has to go all the way through the hoop, I bet a lot of people didn't actually know that one.
I know. Or also the players know that you have to dunk the ball. Okay, before, that's the story of the game, was the collapse. But there were some interesting things in the game early. Like if I would have said Brunson and Cade would be a combined 7 for 25 in the first half, you would have thought I would be crazy. But then again, that Tobias Harris had 22 in the first half, and OG, man, he was unbelievable. He had 19 in the first half, and so you didn't expect that. It was a really, really good game for a while. In fact, my friends from New York, my college boys who are all Knicks fans, they were saying, "Man, I didn't know the Pistons played such good defense. This is really good. It's a really good game." And I said, we'll see what happens. And then, what happened. But, like I said, before the collapse, Trajan Langdon, to me, that's all I was thinking about, because all the young guys really didn't do squat, including the star. I mean, Jalen Duren looked out of place. Thompson early looked out of place. Ron Holland only played 6 minutes. But it was the guys that he acquired, 3 in the offseason, and Dennis Schroeder at the trading deadline, that really had good games for the most part. Beasley with 20. Schroeder only had 8, but he played really well. Hardaway with 19. Tobias Harris in the first half didn't do much in the second half, but he had 25. And I think that was pretty important for the Pistons that the veterans played well.
Yeah, through 3 quarters, I mean, they played as perfect as they could with Cade not being his normal self out there. And you got to give the Knicks a ton of credit for the way that they guarded him defensively. The fact that OG was on him and he didn't score his first 2 against him until I believe it was the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And you need everything to go right if Cade's not clicking on all cylinders. Yes, he was getting the assists, but Tobias played the best game that we've seen through 2 quarters.
You know what's so funny? I didn't want him. I always say play off Tobias, and he actually played obviously really.
But we
really
need him
well
in the second half there too, and just that 21-0 run lead. You have to go back, and I want to go back and watch it, because could there have been timeouts called? I mean, it just seemed like everything unraveled, and for some reason the Pistons decided to go one-on-one a lot.
I know.
And Schroeder took a lot of those shots during that run, which was a little bit odd, but it just seemed like the moment got too big when you needed them the most.
Yeah, and they missed, 5 free throws. The Knicks missed 2. Rebounding, which is a Pistons strength, they only out-rebounded them by 1. The turnovers was the story, though. 21 turnovers. I think they had, 8 in the fourth quarter. And you can't win basketball games, especially playoff basketball games. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, the one on baseline with Cade where he just basically threw it to Towns during that big run, I was like, oh my goodness. And you just saw him coming back with it seemed like unforced errors. But there was some good, but I just wonder if that's kind of a deflating loss almost in game 1, to wonder where their confidence level is going to be, because Stoney, if you look at it, they played a perfect game when everything went wrong. I mean, Duren went in foul trouble right away. Thompson went in foul trouble right away. And as you saw later in the game, those were very, very important players. Stewart really didn't do anything in the game. He had a big body out there. He had a lot of fouls. You got to think that JB's going to put
Nothing.
together a game plan for Cade to get him more shots.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And the game, it looked like it was too big for those guys, including Cade Cunningham. So I would not expect Cade Cunningham to play as poorly as he played in this game. But a lot of that was not just on him. As you mentioned, the Knicks, we knew what they were going to do. We talked about all week that they were going to blitz them and double them and, put OG on them, and they did. And the Pistons, we thought, Asur was going to guard Brunson, which he started off doing. And they did. Look, granted, Brunson's a little bit hampered, but early on, they did a really good job on Brunson. It didn't end up that way, but, they did what they had to. If you're going to, tell me, look, he still scores amazing, amazing baskets when you think, he had 34 points, but what did he have in the first half? He completely took over in the fourth quarter again. And so did, everybody all week. What did they tell me? Oh, Karl Anthony Towns is soft. He may be not the most physical guy in the world, but you know what? If I'm a Knicks fan, I'm pretty happy for his Knicks playoff debut, 10 for 14, 11 rebounds, 23 points.
Some of those shots that he was making on the baseline were just ridiculous, falling away. It seemed like he was going out of bounds and just nothing but net. And listen, he took one of the worst shots that I've seen in a long time. That logo 3 for no apparent reason. But Josh Hart gets it. He passes it out to Payne, and Payne buries it. And you got to talk about how important that kid was.
Oh my God! 14 points, 5 for 7. Most of them in the fourth quarter. 3 for 5 from 3. He was terrific. And Bridges really didn't do that much. They did a good job on him. He only had 8 points. Josh Hart did nothing early, and he came on and had a really good second half. And I didn't expect it. Look, if you tell me the Pistons are going to lose the game by 11 points, I would have said, okay, I wouldn't be stunned. But the way it happened is just stunning, and hopefully it's just not, soul crushing.
Well, yeah, Breen talked about how great the Pistons were going into a fourth quarter with a lead, and how bad that the Knicks were when they were trailing in the fourth quarter. And it was just the exact opposite, and it just seemed like a completely different basketball game. And as much as it kills me to say it, because I really don't want to give the Garden that much credit, but boy, when it came alive, that was a tough place to play in.
Oh yeah, well it always is. When the Knicks go on runs, the place is loud. It's deafening.
Also, Stoney, let me ask you this, because every old player that's ever played. Did the Knicks just call every former player that's alive that had a name and just put them in the Garden? Because they must have shown 20 of them on TV.
The only ones I saw John Starks. Obviously, they showed him about 3 times. At first, I thought it was Wide World West, and then Bernard King, who we talked about with Isaiah earlier this week, looked like he gained about 35 pounds.
Larry Johnson, Marcus Camby, Patrick Ewing.
Oh, they showed them all. Okay.
Sprewell. You had Stephon Marbury. I mean, every single Knick that had any kind of name was there. And I kind of want to see that at LCA with the Pistons. If they're around, bring them in. Jonas, bring them in.
Yeah, Jonas Jerebko. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I just know that he's around.
Yeah, I know. Well, Isaiah told us he couldn't be there because he'll be working. Dumars ain't going to be there. But, bring back Chauncey. That Portland's done. Bring him in. Bring Rip. What the hell? Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was awesome. What about chippiness going forward in this series? It started off pretty chippy. It ended kind of chippy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're gonna. I don't think we're gonna get punches thrown, but I mean, you'll see some technical fouls in this series. There's no doubt about it. And the Garden fans booed Isaiah Stewart as soon as he came into the game.
But you know what? That's good. So be it.
Yes.
Embrace that, right? Now he has to produce a little bit on the floor. I thought Mitchell Robinson, which we had talked about, was going to be an X factor in this game, and he really was. That putback dunk that he had kind of gets you out of your seat, doesn't it? Even if you're not a fan of the Knicks, it's just, oh my God.
I know. Out of nowhere. There's no doubt about it. And look, it's, as we always say, the cliche, the series doesn't start until the home team loses a game. But that was the game, obviously, that you thought even going in, if the Pistons were going to get one, that was the game they might get. at the Garden, because we've seen it so many times, even with the Pistons franchise from the years, even, 88 finals, they win the first game. Of course, the '04 finals, they win the first game and then they, blow the second game and then they win the next three to win the championship. But yeah, that was a game. And now, the Pistons have the Knicks' attention. Not that they knew all about them, obviously. They played them 4 times. It's a defensive thing. I thought the Pistons, for the most part, early, they did a good job on the Knicks pick and rolls, especially in the first half. They did a nice job on that. And the second half, they fell apart. The fourth quarter.
Yeah, if there was one weakness I saw with the Knicks when they tried to guard on Cade Cunningham, when they weren't successful, was he was able to break that hedge and just split the defenders. There was a couple times he just had a wide open dunk that he was able to get to the hoop. Now, I did notice that the players were doing a lot of chirping to the refs. I thought the game was called fine. Obviously, there's a few missed calls throughout the entirety of a game, but I mean,
they let them play,
which was good for the Pistons, right?
Yeah, well, it's good for the Knicks are a pretty good defensive team too. They're not quite as physical as the Pistons, obviously, but you don't want to see a parade to the free throw line. So I like that. Were you a little surprised that we got so few minutes from Ron Holland, or the fact that he completely looked overwhelmed in the beginning? JB did a good job of not putting him in the second half.
And that might be it. Exactly that. That if the moment's too big and you have to realize it in the NBA playoffs, you have to have a short bench and put the guys in that can produce. And let's be honest, the guys that were producing were their veterans that you mentioned that Trajan signed, and boy, did they ever produce. Now, are all 3 going to click every single game like that? I kind of doubt it. But just seeing that, they should have confidence, seeing that they can take the Knicks, who, let's be honest, like the sports books, everybody's didn't really give them a chance, and they were right, obviously, in game 1. Yeah. But they can hang with them, and they had them on the ropes going into the fourth quarter. Just unfortunate that they completely collapsed.
And Cade has said, in all these interviews he did this week, he wants to be the best player in the league. Well, reputations are earned and gained via playoffs. And his first playoff game was not very good. I mean, if you didn't watch the game, you look at the statistics. What are you talking about? He had 21 points. It was 8 for 21, not great. But you know what? And he had 12 assists as well. But, he came back. He had 6 turnovers. They turned them. They kind of regressed in the turnover deal, especially in the fourth. They just got completely rattled. You made a great point. I don't know. They should have called timeout a little earlier than they did in the fourth quarter, I felt,
Well, I'm just a byproduct of Michigan State basketball and letting them have many of runs without calling timeout. So I always want to see that happen. But you have to be very pleased with the Pistons' 3-point shooting as well, Stoney. I mean, They shot, 46%, 15 to 32. And one of those is Ron Holland, who's probably not your best 3-point shooter out there. But Beasley goes 6 to 12. And I also love the rule of he can shimmy long when it's a nice timeout after that shimmy that they talked about on TV. Which broadcast did you watch, by the way? Did you watch the local or national?
I watched the national broadcast. I watched
Mike Green was a little lost out there sometimes. He was calling Stuart Duran. He was getting names wrong.
Yeah, but you know what? People always worry about, he's the Knicks announcer. He was by No way.
You wouldn't know that.
He's great. You're right. You would have never known. Look, here's the timeout situation. It was 98 to 90, and then they didn't call a timeout. So it was 98 to 90 with 9:16 left, and then they went on part of their 21-0 run, and it was 98-98 before the Pistons called a timeout with 7:47 left. So I guess he did call a timeout at the right time. It was just about 2.5 minute run that they went from 8 to 0.
Yeah, I guess it's just you take another quick timeout when you see it keep piling on. You know what I mean? That was the problem. I understand that timeout when it's tied 100 times out of 100, you take that. So
then he took another one with 6:15 left when it was 105-98.
All right, so I stand corrected. He did take that timeout to stop the bleeding, and it just didn't happen.
No, look, hey, the better team won. The Pistons, they were even at the half, right, or very close. It was a 2-point game at the half. And then the Pistons won the third quarter, and the Knicks, who are a better team, blew them out in the fourth quarter. You just have to hope that, forget it. It's one game. You got to go on, and they got to steal one on Monday night, because even though I mentioned the cliche, I just don't think the Pistons are capable of winning 4 out of 5 against that team.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall task, but you know what? If they rebound, you've got to expect Cade Cunningham to respond and have a better game than he did. I mean, he didn't have an awful game by any means. They played great defense on him. He still had 10 assists, and he was able to manage to put up a decent stat line at the end of the night. But you just need to get more out of him. You need to get more out of Asur. You need to keep him on the floor. I think he had a lot of silly fouls that you don't need to commit. You need to keep Duren on the floor, because his pick and roll is still very lethal, but the Knicks are able to match it with 2 bigs. So you have Towns, who didn't play bad at all, and I'm sure he heard Malik Beasley's comments where he said he wasn't worried about him at all, and he was the least of his worries, so that probably got to his ear. You just got to hope that the young guys come out in game 2 after having that experience now, learning and using that as momentum.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's all going to be about adjustments from game 1 to game 2. I mean, Tobias Harris said, I'm reading after the game, for the majority of the game, we did a really good job staying composed, proud of our group. I know we'll make adjustments and be ready for game 2. The turnovers led to easy baskets for them. You can look at the last 3-4 minutes, too many fast break layups. When certain guys got in there and got hot from 3, that hurt us. That's what Tobias Harris had to say. Tough loss, but this is what the playoffs is about. It's about making adjustments. And yes, it was. You just have to hope that with a young team, they realize that it is just one game. And even if they would have played great and lost by 2, it would have been hurtful. It's just when you're up by 8 in the fourth quarter, and you just don't see a 21-0 run in the playoffs. That's disgusting.
It was like that. It just boom,
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
There was nothing they could do about it.
No.
And you got the ugliest jumper in the NBA just drilling 3 after 3 on you. And I mean, what are you going to do? And McBride was awful. I got ask your New York friends, because I'm not aware of this. What do they yell when he's shooting threes?
Who, Brunson?
No, McBride. McBride.
Deuce, because that's his nickname, Deuce McBride.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he was awful tonight. They were both like horrible airballs.
Yeah, but Payne played terrific, so they didn't need him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to see when we go into the next game to have that intensity off the rip. And it did seem like they got in the Knicks' head right off the rip too, just being tough with them. But they never lost composure, and that's what was really impressive about the Knicks, is that they never let it get too big for them.
Well, Isaiah Stewart, I guess, left in the fourth with an apparent knee injury.
Oh, he was looking bad.
Quoting JB Bickerstaff, he means so much to us, and there's so many things that he can do. But at some point, my choice was to protect him. We'll see. When asked about his concern for his availability going forward in the series.
Yeah, did you see how bad he was limping? It was bad, but he was
towards the end.
That guy,
yeah, and that's going to be if he doesn't play, that's tough because they don't have much there. It's going to be Paul Reed in the playoffs.
I mean, B-ball Paul. Let's see what he can do then, right?
Yeah, because Duren gets too many fouls. I mean, and they're always stupid fouls, like unnecessary fouls.
Careless almost. And listen, he's still young. He's 21 years old. I still think he played a decent game when he was out there. The problem is he has to be out there more than 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Especially if Stewart's not out there.
Yes. All right, so the Pistons lose 123-112. The story of the game, a 21-0 run by the Knicks in the fourth quarter when the Pistons led 98-90, and it was quick within like 3.5 minutes, it seemed. And they couldn't recover. Young team, see what happens. Maybe they just needed that one game of playoff basketball to figure out the pace, the intensity. Their veterans came through. Give kudos to Beasley and Hardaway and Harris and Schroeder to a lesser extent. But yes, those guys played well. But the better team won. The Knicks, defensively, OG was terrific, and you didn't expect him to shoot so many threes that he had, and he hit them. And he was, if you're going to give me an MVP, even though Brunson had more points, to me, the MVP of the game was OG.
Well, yeah, and his defense was phenomenal on Cade to start the game. And
right.
That's tough to overcome when your best player is contained.
Yes. All right. We thank everybody for watching and, as always, listening when we do these things. We will be back live Monday evening for you. For Evan Jenkins, Restore the Floor. See ya.